digitization and, more importantly, digitalization is at the core of this. Right. And so that's where you see all the banks today investing in. That's where you see all the focus in. And that's exactly what clients are demanding from us, right? Gone are the days where you could say, I need to open an account, and you're happy to wait for 9 months, right?
Welcome to another edition of CXO series, a forum where some of the exceptional leaders share insight into their career paths, best practices, and the industry trends that are worth paying attention to. I'm your host, Sajid A Khan, president of MicroAgility and founder of CXO series. It is my great privilege today to welcome our guest, a seasoned banking expert, Arun Sinha. Arun is the Chief Operating Officer and Head of Digital Channel and Data at Citi Treasury and Trade Solution for the North America region. Arun, thank you very much for taking the time out.
Thank you, Sajid. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
To jump right into Arun, after having a difficult year due to COVID-19, things are moving in the right direction for the economy, at least for now. The US economy grew at 6.4% in the fourth quarter of this year, and in the second quarter, it is expected to grow in the north of 6.5%. As we both know, this is due to surge in consumer spending triggered by the combination of vaccination and federal stimulus. But what does that mean for the banking industry and Citi specifically? What are some of the implications?
Thanks, Sajid, for the question. A very astute observation, if I may add. Frankly, if you think about it, a lot of the growth that we are seeing in a quarter-on-quarter sense in GDP is driven by, as you rightly pointed out, consumer spending, which is driven to some extent by federal stimulus. But there is also an impact of the actual federal spending that we are seeing in core infrastructure and so on, which is also driving the GDP numbers, right? From a bank perspective and from a general economy perspective, what it translates to is higher volumes and therefore better business prospects, keeping it at a high level. If you also look at it from a consumer perspective, right, what it is translating to is they are saving more. So the saving balances have gone up. Credit card outstandings have come down, and all of us in our ways have noticed the big lines outside LV stores, for instance. So people are out there spending money, which is good for the economy. We are also seeing some kind of shortage in short-term employment in the sense of availability of resources because I see everywhere employers, mostly restaurants and seasonal employees, struggling to find the resources that they need from a day-to-day business perspective. So all that, presents, I would say, an opportunity for the economy at large, because it tells me that, this growth will sustain, and it translates in a better. From a banking, coming back to the banking and industry in general, there are two things at play. Obviously, as the GDP grows, the volumes grow, and it's better for banks. People keep more money in their bank accounts and so on. But what is offsetting all of this to a great extent is the continuing interest rates, which tend to be on the lower side, right? As you can imagine, in a low interest rate environment, your earnings and everything else is impacted quite a bit. So it's a balancing act between the two, if I may put it that way.
Well, certainly, during this challenging time, there are some opportunities. I also like to, I'm curious, what was your style has been keeping your team motivated throughout this past year?
That's a very interesting question, Sajid. Honestly, if you think about, first let me talk about the work pressure. So what has happened is during the COVID time, everyone has to change their working style to working remote. Not only us, our clients were doing the same. It meant, for a simple thing where you took a physical signature from a client, today meant converting it to a digital process and making sure that the client can do their day-to-day business as efficiently as possible, right? Which meant not only us getting used to us working remotely, but also how do I be more effective in supporting my clients' remote working environment at all, right? So there was increasing pressures, if you will, in terms of change, in terms of work pressure, if you will. So a couple of things we did in order to keep the team engaged and motivated. One is to ensure regular communication, right? So we would have Zoom calls, initially almost on a daily basis, just to make sure that everyone is fine, and really pay attention to, how they are feeling mentally, and are they feeling engaged, are they feeling depressed, and so on. Because honestly, if you think of someone who's 22, 23, starting out on their career, the workspace is a key element of the social environment, if you will, right? A lot of their socialization happens at work. A lot of the after work socialization is also with work colleagues. So it was required for us to kind of step in and kind of fill up that void, or help people transition to, how do I continue to actively engage without having that physical connection. So we did that. We also did a series of team bonding and engagement activities, like we'll do virtual treasure hunts and things of that nature, so that people were kind of encouraged to work together in teams. And there was also an element of downtime, because what happened, as you can imagine, Sajid, the days got blurred, right? If you're going into work, you, let's say, get in at 8:30, you get out at 7:30, then you have, like, my work is over. Right. In a Zoom environment, that kind of stretches, and therefore it was very important to bring in those interludes.
Right.
So that's
24/7.
Exactly. So that is something that helped a lot. The other thing we did is we took turns, and almost created a session where we said, "Who am I?" Where we'd have little trivia games where you would kind of talk about yourself, and that way, share things about yourself with the team that they did not already know, which kind of, allowed the connections to get a little deeper, if I may use that term, and continue that engagement to continue. And we were actually, I'm happy to say that we didn't lose anyone, during this scenario and situation. And in fact, we were able to add to our team. So, it seems to have worked so far. But now we are worrying about, how do we transition to going back into work?
Right, very intriguing. Let's talk a little bit more about the digital transformation. We know that a fully digital transformation experience is a new normal, right? What has the pressure been like for the banks to seek innovation just to survive?
See, frankly, especially the space I'm in, which is around transaction services. If you think about it, so first, what has been the biggest driver for digital transformation, if you will? Unfortunately, COVID really drove transformation, right? Not just transformation, more importantly, it drove the adoption of transformation, right? So more and more companies, for instance, adopted things like DocuSign. More and more companies, had to adopt to things like that, which made, them able to continue to service their clients effectively and efficiently, and continue to do their banking, right? So that was, one big driving force that helped us. The second most important thing to think about, if talking about my space and transaction services, we are talking about scale, right? We are talking about accuracy, right? And we are talking about how do you be consistent, right? And how can you give to the client what they want, when they want, where they want, and how they want, right? So at the backbone of this is a very digital platform, which is at scale. Otherwise, you cannot meet these demands, so to speak, of the economy. And we have to remember, at the same time, we are also looking at fintechs who are much more nimble, and who tend to be sometimes more like monoliners, but they're very good at what they do, but they're very extremely nimble. And suddenly a customer today has a lot of choice in terms of what they can look at. So they can look at a holistic solution and come to a banking partner, or they can, cherry pick and go to different fintechs for different pieces of the solution. So how do you bring a complete value, i.e. a platform, to a customer? And at the core of it is an extensive amount of digitization.
Sure. So would you say that in order to simply gain any market share, digital transformation becomes the backbone of any banking operation? And if so, what about the customers? Are they also expecting or expecting, transformation?
Yes, I mean, frankly, if you look at it, most of the banking products, if you were to pick products per se, like ability to clear a check, or ability to extend a loan, tends to be commoditized, right? I can do it, so can, 37 other banks down the street, right? So how do you differentiate yourself? You differentiate yourself by, how easy it is to do business with me, or how quickly can I, or, seamlessly can I onboard you? How efficient my process will be? Does it really create value for you and make you or help you become a better business as far as your clients are concerned? The third thing is, how do I make sure that the service is predictable,
Sure.
Potentially 24/7 and available when you need it, how you need it, and so on, right? So these elements become very core, and to actually compete and succeed and stand out on these elements, digitization and more importantly, digitalization is at the core of this. Right. And so that's where you see all the banks today investing in. That's where you see all the focus in. And that's exactly what clients are demanding from us, right? Gone are the days where you could say, I need to open an account and you're happy to wait for 9 months, right? It's instant gratification. And so, yeah.
Certainly. Arun, very fascinating to hear. While there is a constant change happening in the market, it allows for innovation to run wild. We have been speaking with Arun Sinha of Citi Trade and Trade Solution. Arun, for our viewers who might be inspired to follow in your footsteps, what's something you wish you would have known, let's say, 15, 20 years ago?
Well, at a personal level, on a lighter note, I wish I had invested in all the FANG stocks and believed in them 15 years ago. But on a more serious note, I wish I had focused as much on digitizing and digitalizing processes, and actually focused more on the user experience aspects of any of our platforms. That is more and more critical. And earlier on, this is as much, criticism of myself, going back 10, 15 years, that wasn't the first thing that we spoke about. Today, when we are designing, we first think about the user experience and design everything else. Earlier on, it was like, does it satisfy my finance requirements, my legal requirements, my risk requirements? And by the way, it'll give this to the client. So, that transition has been fascinating. And I wish I had, thought that in my head earlier, and that would have helped me a lot.
Great insight, Arun. Thank you so much for joining me today for the CXO series. It has been absolutely a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, Sajid. It was great speaking to you, and thanks to all our viewers for tuning in, and thank you.
To our viewers, thank you very much for watching, and we are looking forward to sharing more C-level executive insight with you in the near future. Goodbye and take care.